Hello and welcome to BharatShakti.in. I'm Brigadier Chatterjee, editor Bharat Shakti. Uh, we have been talking about our neighborhood countries for the last couple of weeks, and in that we discussed Bangladesh, we discussed Indonesia, we discussed Vietnam. Today we're going to take on another country which is extremely important for us, and that's Nepal. Nepal is one of our border neighbors, and they have also got the Chinese on their north. So they lie between actually two huge countries. They're packed in between two huge countries. What happens in Nepal affects us. What happens with us or whatever is our attitude towards Nepal affects them. To go through the entire gamut of the relationship between India and Nepal, I have with me someone who is amply qualified for his Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, uh, previously DG Assam Rifles. He's also been the Defense Attaché for India in Nepal. Welcome, General. Welcome to the Bharat Shakti Show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for calling me. Indeed and all.
Right, General. My first issue is about our relationship between India and Nepal, and in that, I would rather you go into the current status. You see, I understand that we have a huge historical connect. We have a connect of religion. We have a connect of geography. We have so much to be in common with Nepal. But if you could dwell upon the current issues that really vex us, and perhaps Lipo Lake is one of them.
Thank you, Brigadier Chatterjee, for calling me for the show. Often I'm asked about what Nepal is because having been the DA in Nepal, having served in the army in the Gurkha regiment for more than 40 years, and having done a PhD on Nepal, on the India-Nepal strategic relations, I feel there are a couple of things that we Indians simply don't understand about Nepal. And that understanding comes from the fact that we may be, as a larger country, taking Nepal for granted. But let me just sort of mix history and geography a little bit for you. And I'll get the current status to you because it will not be in context unless I tell you what the rest of the issues.
Okay.
Historically, as you said, Nepal and India are close. Much of the people populating Nepal have probably migrated from here. Over the last 2 centuries, there has been a fair amount of movement in Nepal. As you're aware, Nepal was actually a number of small kingdoms. And by 1700s, we had one single king from the small district of Gorkha, Prithvi Narayan Shah, who was able to unify all the kingdoms of Kathmandu and Nepal and get them all into this narrow strip of land. All right. But where is the origin? The origins of Prithvi Narayan Shah and of the people of Gorkha and of the larger people living in the Middle Hills, because they are the dominating society of Nepal, are likely to have moved from the hills of Kumaon, the hills of Garhwal, and we, in many ways, share very common DNA there. Culturally, we are, we are a Hindu, largely a Hindu society. So is Nepal, largely a Hindu society. In 2006, when they were making their constitution came, I was a DA in the embassy at that time, when we were shocked to hear that Nepal had changed from a Hindu kingdom to a secular democratic republic. So that was a shock for the people in the embassy also, because we never expected it. We thought that they would continue with the Hindu part of their country, but they changed it to a secular country. I am not sure at whose behest, but this was done, and despite our sort of telling them, they still continue to keep it secular. But there is similarity in our religious beliefs, there is similarity in our cultural beliefs in a large part of the society. and they celebrate the same festivals as we do. Geographically, Brigadier Chatterjee, Nepal probably occupies the most important part of the Indian subcontinent. It sits at the head of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. As you're aware, the Indo-Gangetic Plain is India's base. It's the core of Indian civilization. And Nepal sits on the head of the Indo-Gangetic Plain with all the rivers from Nepal flowing into India. So as far as we are concerned, strategically, they are the upper riparian. Geographically, they are on the core, on the main core of our country, of our subcontinent. And historically, they're connected to us through religion, through origin, through intermarriage, and a whole lot of issues. Almost all of them speak Hindi or a part of Hindi. And virtually does have a lot of similarity with the Indian languages, like Bengali, Hindi. It's an amalgam of a lot of other languages. So when you come to talking about the status of our relationships, the reason I don't answer this clearly to you is that there are three separate issues about Nepal. One are the people living in the Kathmandu Valley, because geographically you can sort of break this up. People living in the Kathmandu Valley may have a certain idea about their sense of politics because the government stays there. But the people living in the east and west of Nepal, the core from where we used to recruit our soldiers, have an absolutely different view about India. Very different and very positive view about it. But politically today, it is ruled by Prachanda, and it's a mix of a number of parties, which surprisingly is even a mix of the Rapava, that is the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, which is the King's Party, the old King's Party. It was the RPP. Even the RPP had thrown its hat in with Prachanda to keep out Oli. But what do they think? And their thoughts exactly as what you said, if we go to their foreign ministry and you sit down and you look at the board out there, they quote a quotation of Prithvi Narayan Shah, which says, Nepal is a yam between two borders. The kingdom of the north, that's China, and the kingdom of the south, that is India. Nepal itself considers itself a yam. And if a yam has to survive between those two borders, in their mind, it has to be equidistant. Any movement one way or the other will render this yam absolutely, will finish this thing. So everything that Nepal does, please balance it against their relationship with China and with they will balance every issue, whether it is military exercises, whether it is political visits, whether it is the movement of goods, whatever be the issue, Nepal will balance. So today's relationship is the same as it was 20 years ago. A balancing capable relationship. Prachanda came here, promised nothing. He's gone to China, promised nothing. China has offered it certain amount of issues. He's accepted. India has offered it certain amount of issues. He's accepted. So that's how this relationship is continuing and will continue to be. So we should not feel alarmed when we see a greater movement of China. But I'll explain that further.
Right. Well, to carry on in the same vein, like you yourself say, China has a big influence on Nepal as far as Nepal's relationship with India is concerned. Can we talk a little bit about Nepal-China relation, Prachanda's visit, and the odd major project? Not all of them, there are plenty of them. But I'm just limiting it to the odd one because we will otherwise run out of time.
See, keep in mind, sir, that the Chinese relationship with Nepal did not start 20 years ago. In the 1770s, they signed, in fact, in the 1770s, Nepal was battling Tibet. And they were continuously fighting with Tibet. And that issue between Tibet and Nepal has continued over the last 2 centuries. In 1858, 1860, they signed the Treaty of Thapatali with China, which effectively means that they would pay obeisance to the court of China. Right? Because they fought in Tibet and lost in Tibet. It is only once the growth of the colonial empire came about in India and they realized the British colonial empire was more powerful than the king in China, is that they started moving towards the colonial power of Britain. And Nepal became more or less a protectorate of the British colonists who were at that time located in India. So when you look at this issue, you look at the issue that post-1948 and you look at the issue pre-1948. But let's go to post-1948. What is the relationship with China? From 1948, Mao had made a statement somewhere in 1950, immediately post our independence. And of course, their final battle had finished and Mao had taken over as the ruler of China. That Nepal was a part of the 5 fingers of the palm of China. And that he wanted to unify all the 5 fingers of China, which included Nepal, which included Taiwan, which included, as he called it, southern Tibet, that is today's Arunachal Pradesh. So when Nepal heard this, it became alarmed. And when it became alarmed, it moved towards India and asked India to reorganize its forces and also put Indian troops on the Nepal-China or Nepal-Tibet border. But by 1962, post India's defeat in the 1962 war, what happened? Nepal realized that India would not be able to protect it in case any kind of military operations against China. And therefore started slowly disassociating itself. By 1967, they had asked the Indian forces to remove themselves. We had an Indian military training team in Nepal that was asked to be removed. And they then took charge of their own borders. And they started again getting close to China because they wanted to continue this balancing relationship. Now, what are the issues where they interact with China? There are 3 issues there. They interact with them in military training, just as we have their officers and men coming to us under the ITEC program to come for various military programs. A similar ITEC program has been signed with China. So a large number of Nepalese officers, just like they come to us for our staff college, JC, senior command, junior command, and the virus courses, also go to China. Their senior officers go for the Chinese NDC. They have an interchange of the PLS officers coming into China, as well as the Nepalese army officers go to China. So military relationship-wise, they have kept a balance. There isn't anything more that they do with China and nothing less that they do with us. That's the first issue. Economically, China is much stronger than India. And so most of the contracts, especially of the larger hydroelectric projects, Nepal, as you know, has a proven capability of 80,000 kilowatts of megawatts of power. And she is only harnessing about 1,000 megawatts of power. So most of these projects have gone to Chinese companies, who then, of course, get another set of contractors to do these projects. The Pokhara airport has been modified by China. The road from Tibet down to Kathmandu, the road from what we call the Arniko highway, from Tibet it comes down to Kathmandu, is being done by China. So large number of roads, large number of infrastructure. The ring road around Kathmandu is being made by China. The airport in Kathmandu is being made in China. These are the larger projects that Nepal has given to China economically. Politically, the Nepal form of communism is very different from the Chinese form. And Prachanda, as well as the other communists of China, of Nepal, pay lip service to the Chinese communism, but are not communists. They are like all subcontinental politicians. They are capable of moving either way. It doesn't matter which way. And it's just the name of communism, but otherwise they're definitely not communists. And definitely not aligned or over aligned with the Communist Party itself. So these are the three issues where I would set our relationship. Militarily, I told you there's a balance. Politically, also, Prachanda has kept a balance, as all the governments have kept. They will come to India, they'll also go to China. And economically, yes, China has got a major portion of the larger infrastructure projects, only because in Nepal's mind, China has better capability of competing. So these are the issues that are on the table as far as Nepal and China are concerned.
Right then, Prachanda visited India. What was the impact on our relationship? Any major issues that you would like to highlight?
So I went through the visit in detail. We didn't have major aims with Prachanda's visit. We as a large country, let me just put it in context. If you read India's newspapers, where does Nepal figure in the papers? Probably page 5, page 6, probably an odd article. But India's focus is elsewhere in the world. We are focused on the larger superpower, we're focused on our own survival, we're focused on trying to deal with difficult economic solutions. So India's focus is elsewhere, and in none of these issues will Nepal be able to help us. Whereas Nepal's newspapers, page 1, 5 out of the 10 articles will be on India. Because to them, India is this large giant on the south from where everything of Nepal used to come. So, when Nepal is looking at a different frame from India, and what India is looking at a different frame from Nepal, our requirements were very, very few from Nepal. The fact that he came was a message enough that we are still good friends. He came before he went to China. That's messaging. In the larger aspect, maybe opening up a couple of border posts, maybe trying to sort out the Lipu Lake problem, maybe trying to sort out the Kali Nadi problem, maybe trying to sort out our border issues, which, Brilliant Shakti, you're probably aware that we've been having this problem with Nepal for over the last century. Even pre-independence, there was a problem between British India and Nepal over the definition of the boundary, which is along the Kali River. Mainly because the Kali River had shifted its banks. The boundary was to be taken in all circumstances from the middle of the river. But the river shifted its course. And therefore, the middle of the river now has changed, and a large part of that portion has come to us. So that's the issue about Lipu Lake Pass. Lipu Lake Pass, we took it as a tri-junction, from where it is a tri-junction between India, Nepal, and Tibet. But as per Nepal's old records, Lipu Lake Pass fell in Nepal's territory. So if you go to the Upper Karnali region and you go and you cross, like I have crossed from the Kali River across onto India and gone to Lipu Lake Pass, you will realize that they never said anything to us till we decided to say that we built this road to Lipu Lake Pass and that we are now capable of holding on the Chinese at Lipu Lake. So if we had not made it public, probably Nepal would not have bothered either. But because we made it public, the Nepalese, being what they are a sovereign country. They want to, how does that put it? They want to be treated as equals. So they decide to make that an issue. But in reality, whether you negotiate with them or not, and we've been negotiating this boundary issue over the last 40 years, there will be no change. I've gone through all the papers of the boundary issue. There will be no change on this because they don't want this particular issue solved. And it's an intractable issue because they're not going to agree to lose our territory. And they feel that that is their territory.
Talking in the same vein, we have this thousands of Nepalese people who work in our army. They share the same kind of rest, they share the same kind of life, all the hardships, everything together. But this Agnipath scheme in which you are going to throw out, or the army is going to throw out about 75% of the inductees, this perhaps is not going very well with people in Nepal, as I understand. What's the effect really of Agnipath on our overall relationship also? Perhaps it boils out to that also. Can you explain the equation?
Yeah, of course. It's a very touchy subject, at least for all of us in the army, because most of us have felt that the Agnipath was largely unnecessary. But let me try and put it in context about Nepal and how this non-recruitment of Gurkhas and Agnipath scheme is going to affect our relationship. When you look at the recruitment, the way India recruits, or the way the Indian army recruits in Nepal, you have to see that our recruitment is done from the middle hills, largely the middle hills of Nepal. From the east, there are the eastern part of Nepal are inhabited mainly by the Tamils, the Rais, and the Limbus in East Nepal, and those are recruited into 11 Gurkha Rifles. The middle hills are largely inhabited by the Bauns and the Chetris, and those are recruited in the 9th Gurkha Rifles. And the Thapas, Chetris, and the Magars live in western Nepal on the middle hills. The districts of Pokhara and the other districts along the middle hills, those are recruited by the 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th Gurkha Rifle and the 8th Gurkha Rifle. So all the Gurkha Rifles have their presence in the middle hills of Nepal. But what does the middle hills mean actually? That's the heartland of the Nepalese society. And because we have 128,000 Nepalese origin Indian ex-servicemen living there, we have a sizable community of people who in their hearts say that humne Bharat ka namak khaya hai, and we will never let Bharat down. Because of the kind of pension they have, which is a very generous pay scale in Nepal, because you multiply by 1.6. The Indian soldiers of Nepalese origin who are living in Nepal are the opinion shapers of their villages. I have traveled, Brigadier Chatterjee, extensively lived amongst some men. I speak a number of their dialects, and I can tell you that they are absolutely clear that to them, India is the mother, the one which gives them food, which has allowed them to educate their children, and which continues to look after them by sending medical teams all over every time you require. With this kind of opinion in Nepal, their children who are educated in Indian schools are also opinion shapers. Many of them have done very well. And when they have done well, they also occupy positions of power within the bureaucracy and are often elected members in the Nepalese House of Representatives and in their parliament. It is a very sizable issue. By not recruiting them now, what have we done? That 20 years later, we will lose this fabulous community of soldiers who still consider us the mother of their existence. But why are they not coming? Because they simply feel that 4 years is not enough for them to give up their lives. If you lived in Kathmandu and you live in the Middle Hills, you will realize how difficult life is for them. They come out of the villages. In those days, they used to walk 18 days to come to a place from where they could reach their units. And therefore, we used to give 18 days of leave more to them That means instead of 128 days, you used to get 142 days. Simply because we had to add that travel time to their existence. So when that difficult life was there, why would he come for 4 years, out of which only 25% would be taken? The rest 75% what would they do? So when I went to Kathmandu, and when I've spoken to a large number of people from my regiment, and we had recently a platinum jubilee of my regiment where I sat and talked to them about this particular issue. They all said, "Sir, we can't send our children because for us, our relationship with them was generational. We had recruited the grandfather, then we took the father, then we took the son, and we would be taking his son. With that kind of relationship, why would he, want not to send his children to us unless there was something that really has upset him?" And what has upset Nepal is that in this decision to change our recruiting rules, we did not take Nepal into confidence. You might say, why would we take Nepal into confidence over a domestic recruitment aspect? But in 1947, when we signed the tripartite agreement between us, Britain, and Nepal, that their soldiers would be treated equally the same as in the three armies, I feel just for a good relationship, we could have talked to them also and not made it fait accompli. There is a major employment problem in Nepal. It's a very major problem. There are no employment opportunities in Nepal for them. They have to go out to seek employment. And what we are afraid of, and I'm sure your thought in mind would be that if they don't come to India, would they join countries inimical to India? Would they join those armies? Would some of them join the PLA? Would some of them join the Pakistan army if given a chance? We know from WhatsApp videos that they have joined the Russian army to fight Ukraine. We know that they have joined the French Legion. So if they can go that far, I don't see it difficult for them to join the PLA if the PLA wants that. And you can imagine, Brigadier Chatterjee, if Nepalese youth start getting recruited into the PLA, we would have a major, major problem on our borders that are unfenced and largely unpoliced. We would not be able to stop elements that are inimical to us from coming into our country. So we need to be very careful when we, make such policies that affect our neighbors. What you said in the beginning, which is important here, is everything that happens in India affects them. And we must never forget that they sit on our heartland. And that heartland is safe because of them.
Right, General. That was very beautifully and very lucidly explained, I would say. I'm looking forward to answering that question. I have only one last question and bullet point for your answers, please. Very precise. And that's, what are the measures required by us, as you see, big, broad measures that are required by us to improve our relationship, give it more stability?
Okay. Firstly, treat Nepal as an equal. Most important issue. Secondly, do not treat Nepal and do not restrict its trade to just 3 to 4 points. Increase the number of trading points. Allow them access to the sea, unfettered access to the sea. The ports of Bengal, and they have been looking for access to the port of Chittagong. I see absolutely no reason why they cannot be allowed to travel through India to the port of Chittagong and to trade from there. There's absolutely no problem as far as I'm concerned. If there's a security issue, we can easily overcome it by making sure that these convoys that come from Nepal are guided by us. 3, make Nepal understand that it is India open. The more Nepal is with us, the better it is for us. You can imagine that 2,000 kilometers of a shared border, or unfenced shared border that we have can be a major problem for us. Goes to elements and countries that create this. 5, sort out the boundary issue. For a huge country like us, it's not a major issue. We need to be more generous with Nepal. Sorry. And the last issue is what I started with. Understand Nepal's compulsions vis-a-vis China. Nepal feels it is a yam between two boulders. She will balance her relationship. Understand that balancing and don't push it. Because Nepal will not give up her sovereignty or her freedom to China. And at present, China has shown no attempt to come through from Tibet down to Kathmandu, which she easily can with the troops. There's nothing to stop. So when we understand these issues and we take a softer line with Nepal, we take a line with a country that's a sovereign country and see how best we can help it, we will find that a lot of things will.
Right, Gil, thank you so much for having joined Bharat Shakti. I think that's been a wonderful discussion that we had, and it's very kind of you to have spared your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you, viewers. Thanks for tuning into Bharat Shakti. Do tune in like this now and then, and you will find discussions that will really interest you. Thank you.